The Mike Hosking Breakfast, 6 to 9 weekdays on Newstalk ZB.
Sam Wood is with us. Very good morning.
Thanks for having me, Mike. Great
No worries
to be here.
at all. Just the Bachelor thing I don't want to dwell on, but what I am interested in is given you're a serious operator and you're an entrepreneur and you're a fitness man and all that sort of stuff and you've become very successful, did the Bachelor side of the equation ever clash with you trying to get on with business and life?
No, if I'm being truly honest, it helped. You know, it boosted my social media profile drastically in a really short period of time, and I think exposed me to lots of people that perhaps wouldn't have known about me otherwise. I always had successful gyms and fitness businesses in my own little community in Melbourne, but from an online expansion capacity all across Australia, The Bachelor was really good for that. I also met my wife and we now have 4 kids, so I should never dismiss it or never forget where I've come from, but I'd never seen the show before I went on it. I've never really watched it since I went on it, but it was a whirlwind, that's for sure.
Do you know the name Art Green?
No.
Art Green was you here,
right?
And he
right.
and what was interesting about that is that it's I don't know him that well, but he's a hell of a nice guy, and he married a woman called Matilda, who's also a very nice person.
I have heard of him. Yes,
right? So
yes,
Maturtles is what they call themselves. The only reason I raise this is he's like you. He is a fitness freak.
Yep.
And he is, if you just look at him physically, he's like a nose to tail guy in terms of food. Like eats the whole animal. He's an ice bath man every day, and he lives and breathes what he preaches.
Yep.
And there is proof that it seemingly works. So what I want to know from you is the tech side of the equation. We seem to be in a world, and we got some stats out last week here that, like Australia, too many people are fat.
Yep.
We seem to be losing that battle, and yet there seems to be an industry of people who have never been fitter, never known more about wellness and health.
So what have we got? We got
two. Exactly.
So where are we at? Well, knowing and doing are not the same thing. I think that's the problem, and in a fast-paced world of convenience and clever marketing and highly processed foods and very sedentary lifestyles, you don't have to be too far on the wrong side of those things every single day before you wake up and you have gained 5, 10, 15, 20 kilos and you are in the wrong side of the overweight obesity statistics. And I guess I'm not here to be doom and gloom. I'm here to be part of the solution. The good side is you don't have to be too far the other way to start to turn that around. Right. And as much as Art Green probably lives it to the letter, I don't. I'm much more about progress, not perfection. I still love a beer and a red wine and chocolate, but I get my steps up every day. I do strength training 3 times a week, for half an hour. You don't have to train intensely for 60 minutes every day. You don't have to count every calorie. You don't have to, eat from the land exclusively. That's fantastic if you can, but I think taking more realistic steps in today's world just in the right direction is what people should be focusing on. And that can be body weight exercises for strength training, getting those steps up, as I said, eating real food most of the time, but not being too hard on yourself. The ice baths and the saunas and the fasting and that kind of stuff, which I know you're into, is fantastic. But the reason I love fasting is you just tend to eat less.
100%.
I mean, from a practical perspective, if you're putting it in an 8-hour window, you're not snacking really late at night, and you're not eating all those processed, highly sweet
Snacking's
foods.
a killer, isn't it?
It really is. It really is. Most of us in Western society just eat too much, and there's been a lot of studies to show that typically we underestimate how many calories we eat per day by about 30%, and we overestimate how many calories we burn by 30%. If you ask someone to write down at the end of the day how many they ate and what they burnt, we're about 30% off both ways. So we're 60% off. So we're a fair way away from what's actually happened, and that's only happened that day. So when you do it weekly and monthly, we really do lose sight of just how much we consume and just how little we move.
I don't want to be one of those people that goes, I do this, and so because that sounds awful, but I don't snack. I literally don't snack, right? Ever.
3 meals done.
That's me done.
Yeah.
And sometimes 2 meals.
Yeah.
Only 2 meals.
Yeah.
And what the only reason I'm telling you that is it's remarkable how easy it is to do. It's not like a thing that you go, oh, no, that's impossible, that's stupid, he's a weirdo. Ice baths, for example, they're hard work. That's a journey,
that's a journey.
But cutting down on your food isn't hard work. How much of it's about knowledge, do you think? And if you know what you're eating, what's in what you eat, what you get out of exercise, if you know that bit, that helps.
Well, I definitely think it helps, but it's clearly not the solution. I know lots of highly intelligent people. I train at my gym lots of doctors who are overweight and unhealthy, and they're far smarter and more qualified than I am. So it can definitely help, and I encourage people to research and do their homework and get the right information from the right source. I mean, it's hard in today's social media world to know what to trust. There's a lot of crap out there from a lot of people who might have lots of followers but absolutely no idea. That's a real pet peeve of mine back in Australia. But, find people that know what they're talking about, listen to them, but don't try and do it all at once. It's like training a kid to throw a ball. If you give them 6 tips, they'll probably forget all of them. If you give them one thing to focus on, they're more likely to execute that skill and then build the next one and build the next one. I often say to people, don't even worry about doing your food and your fitness together. Maybe get your breakfasts under control, get your steps up, join a gym and do weight training 3 times a week, whatever it is. Start with one of those foundational things and then build it up in layers, and you tend to see people have a lot more success. And if you do adopt that progress, not perfection attitude, it's just far more sustainable. This quick fix,
100%.
Intense, I've got to do everything together, and you're hanging on by your fingernails in your last 4 weeks, and then you fall off the cliff, and you typically rebound back worse than where you started. You lost 4 kilos, you gained 6 back.
Have you changed your view on exercise? Being a PT, have you changed your view on exercise over the years? Everything 100%. I read. So now it's not about bulking up. It's not about a HIIT class.
Yeah.
It's about some resistance, strengthen the bones, strengthen the muscles. And I'm not talking about being an athlete. I'm just talking about living a healthy, long life.
Yeah,
so we're learning.
We are learning. I mean, I think it depends on your life stage as well and what's important to you. I've changed for 2 reasons. When I was 20, it was a bit more of a vanity play, and I was trying to have the abs and look a bit better in a singlet, and I'm okay admitting that. I'm now 43 and have 4 kids, and it's much more about how I feel and how I function, and wanting to be around for their 40th birthdays or their weddings or whatever it might be. So it's interesting how you shift. I'm not against training for aesthetics. It's a really good way to get started. A lot of people start because of how they want to look, and they keep going because once they get addicted to that feeling, and they keep going because of how it makes you feel. Once those endorphins kick in, but there should be some cardiovascular there. You should do at least one intense session a week where you do get out of your comfort zone, you do spike your heart rate, whether it's bursts on the assault bike or sprints or whatever it might be. As we get older, that becomes really important. And then the resistance training, and then the mobility is really important too. Make sure you stretch, make sure you move through a good range of motion. If you're doing all 3 of those things, you're going to hold yourself in pretty good stead.
I increasingly read is critical. As you get older, balance is everything.
Yeah, balance and bone density to avoid falls once you and everyone sort of thinks old has to be 80. You should start doing this stuff in your 40s,
100%.
And then you'll hold yourself, in a lot better place, moving forward.
How much does tech play in this whole equation? See, my wife, for example, she was an early adopter on the Oura Ring.
Oh, yeah.
And she's like so far down that rabbit hole as to measuring your sleep and how
the
your blood and your
and,
breathing and your stuff like that. Is that genuinely useful?
I think so. I think people like getting feedback. I think it takes a bit of the guesswork out of it. I think it keeps you accountable. I know, social media and tech can be your best friend or your worst enemy, depending on how you use it. You can become a bit unhealthily obsessed by it. You can go down into these negative communities, and they can really have a negative impact on your mental health and your self-esteem. But I think if you're using it in the right way and you're tracking the things that are important to you, that can only be a good thing. I've got an app with hundreds of thousands of people on it. I'm not going to sit here and say tech's a bad thing, because it's been life-changing for so many people. But you've just got to use it in the right way. And if you do feel that it's starting to become an unhealthy obsession, you've probably got to stop and assess.
Yeah. What weighting would you give diet v exercise?
It's a great question. I get it a lot. The question I hate is, Sam, which one is more important? Like, you have to choose one. Yeah. It's like, well, hang on, no, both are equally as important. But from a weight loss perspective, food's more important. I genuinely think if your weight or weight loss is your goal, you're never going to out-train poor nutrition. But from a function perspective, they really are equally as important. We become a bit obsessed with what we weigh, and we forget about the importance of our cardiovascular health, our bone density, and our muscle tone.
Exactly. Do you know anything about blue zones? Read about blue zones, the blue zone communities and stuff, and
this is from a longevity perspective.
Exactly.
Yeah, I've seen some of it. A couple of those, longevity experts over in the States that are, charging all the billionaires all that money.
Exactly. They say movement.
Yeah.
It's like if your life is about movement, just move.
Yeah.
And being sedentary is the worst thing you can do for yourself.
Absolutely. I mean, in Australia and New Zealand, the statistics are the same. More than 50% of Australians sit for over 8 hours a day. We sit at work, we sit in the car, we get home, we sit on the couch. And I think we forget that 4 10-minute walks is just as beneficial as one 40-minute walk. I think we forget that doing 5 minutes of stretching or resistance exercise in the ad break of your favourite TV show has benefit. You don't have to find a 60-minute window in a crazy busy world. Any little pockets that you can find to get yourself moving. I came up with Sam, your producer, before, and we took the stairs, and it was great. Make those little choices.
You notice he's a bit buff.
He is. He's in great shape. He's in great. I was very impressed.
Yeah.
So making those little good choices are so important. Getting outside, getting some fresh air, getting some vitamin D. I walk my dog every single day for 60 minutes, and it's probably the most therapeutic thing for both of us. And it's my sort of meditation.
Exactly.
And doing those kind of things and getting into those habits, making sure you're getting your 8,000, 10,000 steps every day is only going to hold you in good stead.
Fantastic. Good to meet and talk with you.
Mike, thanks for having me.
May we be healthy forever.
Absolutely. Can't wait to work with more New Zealanders. Thanks for having me.
The Mike Hosking Breakfast, 6 to 9 weekdays on Newstalk ZB.